Hello, I'm Esther Roche and welcome to the Mom CEO podcast. Join me as we explore the dynamic intersection of motherhood and entrepreneurship. From the challenges to the triumphs, we're here to unravel it all. Get ready for insightful conversations, practical wisdom, and a whole lot of inspiration. Let's embark on this empowering journey together. Hello and welcome to the Mom CEO podcast. Today I'm joined by REBECCA Newenham and she is the founder of Get Ahead. REBECCA, hello and welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Esther. It's a privilege to be here.
No, thank you for joining me today. So for the benefit of our audience, please could you introduce yourself and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I'm legitimately here as I'm a mum. I'm a mum of three. So I'm REBECCA Newenham. I live in Guildford in Surrey in the UK. And I've been, as you rightly said, running Get Ahead now for the last 14 years. So I guess I'm totally aware of the juggle. The juggle is real. My girls are now 18, 20 and 22. But by all means, that does not mean that they're still not needy of their mum all the time.
No, that's really interesting. And what you say, obviously, with the ages, because sometimes I think we can think the younger they are, it means there's more work to do. But I think they have different demands as they grow, don't they?
Esther, absolutely. And I remember that when they were little, thinking, oh, you go through the nappies and all of that stage, or starting them at school. And I always used to think there would be an end to this. And I'm not saying it in a negative way at all. I absolutely love it. And I love the way technology supports us to have that open communication. My oldest daughter lives in Manchester, so quite a way away from me, and she'll FaceTime and I feel hugely connected. So there are absolutely huge benefits, aren't there, from it? It's just you are available 24/7.
No, absolutely. And you never stop being a mom, isn't it? You just...
And it's a privilege, isn't it? And I know as a mum of five, Esther, which I can't get my head around, I thought three was an achievement. But, it's a privilege to be a mum. And I would never say that in a negative way. It's just, you're so right. It's about you're available and they have to come first.
No, absolutely. So if you can share a little bit, obviously, about your journey. Obviously, when you set up your business, the children would have been still younger at that point. But what was the inspiration behind setting up Get Ahead, when you started?
Yeah, so I had a corporate career. So I was a retail buyer for both Superdrug and Sainsbury's. So I did a business studies degree, did a few jobs, then got into buying, absolutely loved it. But I always felt I had this little thing in the back of my mind that corporate wasn't possibly where I felt 100% comfortable. So I was privileged enough to have an 8-year career break where I had the girls, and I did various bits, voluntary work, and I always felt I had a purpose, but I also knew that this was my time to think of other things. So my mum had run what was then called a tutorial agency when I was growing up. So she matched kids wanting extra tuition with a bank of teachers. And she was really inspiring because she was around for my brother and I. My father was working full time. She was there, but she was also working, and she inspired me to sort of see that that was possible. So she always said to me, you'll find your thing. And I was like, well, what is my thing? And I used to be quite envious of some of my friends who were sort of marching off down to the station. I'm sure they didn't feel great about doing that, but they had a purpose. And I think that's what I took those 8 years to really discover, was what is my purpose next. And I think it was having that confidence to realize that you don't have just your corporate career and you're invested in that and that's what's going to last you forever. It was very much, this is now a natural stopping point for me to look at what I wanted to do next. So I did a lot of research, and virtual assistants was quite strong in the States. So I thought, actually, that's quite an interesting opportunity. But with my branding background, I knew I didn't ever want to do something where it was me on my own and it was all about me. And I guess, with my surname being sort of quite full on, I never wanted to build just a REBECCA Newenham business. I wanted something more. So that's where the Get Ahead piece came about. My husband, Martin, and I did a lot of sort of toing and froing around about what we're going to call this business, what might it look like, but we've always had a vision that it wouldn't stop with just me. And I would imagine, Essie, you're the same as me. You're looking around in the playground at school, this wonderful resource of other parents that had fantastic skill sets, but they were struck and restricted by the fact that they needed to pick the kids up from school and they needed that flexibility. So I had that thread of wanting to set up something that would give flexibility right from the beginning. And I knew I didn't want to be restricted to client delivery. I wanted to run it and grow it and keep my interest. So that's what's happened basically. So I grew from just me doing some networking to now having franchised the business. So we've got regional offices around the UK, and I've got currently around 80 freelancers providing remote support to our clients in the UK.
Oh wow, that's absolutely fantastic. It's been quite a journey really when you look at it, and you've mentioned a few things there that I have intrigued my interest, because the first thing is the inspiration that you got from your own mum, because sometimes I think you underestimate that sort of community, or the kind of upbringing and your surroundings when you're growing up and everything, and it's something that came back to you at a later date. Do you feel that really helped you with having mum having gone through?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's spot on, because my mum had trained as a primary school teacher. She only actually taught, I think, for 2 years because she fell pregnant with me and then had my brother. So actually, she gave me that confidence that you don't have to just do one role forever. And I would say my father was actually inspirational in terms of setting up the business, and she facilitated it and she made it happen. And she was unusual, but you're right. I hadn't, as all our kids, like they don't appreciate you at the time necessarily, do they? And I'm seeing that with my girls now. They're seeing me in action, and it's relevant to them, especially for my eldest daughter that's just started a graduate job. She now gets what working's all about and can reflect back and sort of see and compare and contrast to my journey.
Yeah, no, it's quite a change, isn't it? And they miss having like term time holidays and stuff. It's like
Oh, exactly. She's sort of poor Izzy. She's like, I've only got 25 days and I've got to do this, that whole mindset thing. But
yeah.
of course, you don't know until you shift and change.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting with all those things, because I think sometimes we also underestimate the what we're doing, how much it helps and influences the younger ones, our children in how they develop and how they grow up. And it's not necessarily even now, some start younger, but others only get certain things when they're a little bit older and they want to set up, but they have that backing and that support, which it's not taught in schools,
No,
how
no,
to.
no, no, absolutely. And it's that inspiration from all sorts of places, isn't it? And it's also, we often say it's about relevance. It's how relevant are we? Because if we're active in a working environment now, we can relate to the language that's being used and things as well, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. That's brilliant. So with my another interest of mine is obviously the fact that you've kind of niched down on working with other mums, I suppose, other women that want that flexibility and stuff. What were the kind of challenges that you kind of foresaw before you set up and obviously decided to go down that avenue of having
Um,
the
yeah,
flexibility?
yeah, I think I knew I wanted to set something up for myself. And then when I started doing it, I did a lot of research and I was picking up on potential opportunities that I myself couldn't fulfill. So
Right.
business owners saying, oh, actually, I'd like some support in a particular system or particular area that I didn't have the experience for. And it was then having that mindset of thinking, actually, yes, there's a demand here. And I think that fed into my background of retail buying, where you're looking at what the customer, the consumer is wanting, and therefore fulfilling that need. So I was able to sort of transition my skill set that way. And I also picked up very early on, where was I getting my energy and enjoyment from? And that was in the networking. And I remember when I was at school, the thought of standing up in front of someone and doing a presentation filled me with absolute horror. And I realized quite early on that was because I was probably talking about a subject at school that I wasn't passionate about, or I didn't really know enough about. But as soon as I was in an environment where I could talk about what I was currently doing and what I was passionate about, which is in providing remote support for growing businesses, I then thrived in that environment. So networking gave me that launch pad. And I then went on to run networking groups. I now run a LinkedIn local in Guildford near me. And then that's become a thriving community of like-minded people that want to meet up. And that's where I get my energy. I love hosting them, bringing people together, connecting them. And when you're in your flow and doing the right thing, you know you're doing the right thing. If you see what I mean, don't you?
Oh no, absolutely. And it's interesting there about the whole networking thing because it is something that people dread. Um, but if like you said, you rightly mentioned, if you're talking about something that you don't enjoy and don't have a passion for, it's the same as even waking up in the morning. If you're not enjoying what you're doing every day, it's hard, isn't
Really hard, and it's not natural, is it? And I think it was exactly that when I suddenly thought, hold on a minute, I'm enjoying getting up. I'm looking forward to the day. I'm looking forward to who I might meet, and my mindset around going to a networking meeting is, oh, who might I meet today? And I'm going to make some new friends, rather than looking at it like, oh my God, I'm going to go there and I won't know anyone. And it's how you change your mindset to reflect it in a positive way.
Yeah, no, it can be quite daunting and quite scary. And it's sometimes I think with networking as well, like for me personally, a lot of things changed with things going more online because I'm very busy and everything. It's kind of like has helped me to be able to connect with other groups and networks that I would have never otherwise been able to do. And like you said earlier
Absolutely.
about technology, that it's amazing how you can do that.
Yes, and you cannot feel quite so isolated, or things aren't such an effort, are they? Because I think that was in the past. I would go up to London, so it'd be get the train, get there, and it would take a whole day out. So I think the efficiencies are so much easier, aren't they? And I think for us as a business, we in the past before the pandemic had struggled slightly with some people who'd say, well, how can I trust that your virtual assistant's going to support me if they're not sitting in the desk next to me? And of course, all of that's gone. And we were very much at the forefront. And I remember going on local radio talking about what you needed to do to set up at home, because that's obviously what I've always done. And before we started this recording, we talked a bit about the perception. So I'm in my home office, but before lockdown, I'd be going, oh, hope someone doesn't knock on the door, or I hope the postman doesn't make a noise, because I'm trying to present a certain sort of experience. Well, now we're so much more authentic, aren't we?
Yeah, and it's better because you can just be who you are. You can
Exactly. You're honest. Yeah.
and unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but things do happen and you've got to attend to them and deal with them. And I think the society seems to accept things a little bit more since a lot of things have gone online more than they did before. So
Oh, absolutely. So you could be sitting here talking to me in your joggers, can't you? But you could have a nice top. And it's all of that stuff. You're not having to, and I've got my little heat on, I might even be wearing my slippers. It's just sort of how it goes. Yeah.
I've got my heater here, so so we're
Yes, I have. Freezing.
no, that's amazing, with just how technology and everything has changed. But, with your own journey, what kind of strategies helped you, in order to balance everything and just manage your time really? And
Yeah, so I think I've always had a business coach. So that's been a big thing for me. And I'm now doing mentoring for female founders as well. And I often say if I hadn't had coaching throughout my last 14 years, I probably wouldn't be married anymore or have any friends, because I would have been talking to them about it the whole time. So that's been really important for me to have external support. And I remember it was lovely. I met my first coach, Bev, and she gave me some free sessions because she was training. And I remember thinking, oh, she wants to work with me, but it was amazing. And so that then when I started paying for it, it was a big chunk of my monthly income, but it was vital that I had that external support to then drive me forward. And I think I probably would have not delivered the work and sped the business up in the rate I had if I hadn't had that coaching. And that fed into sort of how I operated at home, boundaries, and all sorts of things. So I would say that for me was probably the most important part of it, but also working with different people at different stages. And I think I'm much clearer now on what support I need when. So when I started looking at franchising the business, I started working with a franchise consultant that could help me do that. And ironically, I'm now a franchise consultant myself. So working with brands that want to scale through franchise, because I could see how important it was to get the right support.
wow, it's you've had such an amazing journey in growing, obviously, the business and doing the franchise model and everything. How do you find, with obviously the planning and everything, because you've had a lot of support with in terms of coaching and everything. How did you find that support in conjunction to running your own home? As in, yes, you've got the coaches on the side, but how was it like trying to balance the juggle, basically?
Yeah, no, and absolutely. I remember dreading the summer or the school holidays quite a lot. So then I decided don't sweat it, actually shut down or get other people to support me during the holidays. So I remember like invoicing day was always a big one. So then quite quickly I shifted that to get someone to do the invoicing for me. But I would say the big thing for me has always been open communication with my kids around their expectation of when I'm available, when I was available. So I would be very clear on sort of making sure that the whole point of me running the business was to be there for them. Therefore, the holidays had to be an opportunity for us to do things together. But I would be very clear on a weekly basis as to what time I was not going to be around for, or make sure there were certain clubs and things they could do. But I didn't want to sacrifice that time. But it is hard. And as you know, Esther, your business is your your extra child. It's always there, and that's lovely. But it's also that can be the time where you just have to decide what's the priority and not overcommit to things. And I think it was making sure I didn't have client meetings and things in the holidays, and people now are much more accepting of that, aren't they? They understand that you're traveling. And actually, I know quite a few female business owners that say, oh, I don't work on a Friday. Often I don't on a Wednesday, for example, have meetings, and the likes of Calendly and booking meetings and making all those things much more efficient really play into that. But it's always been important to me to be transparent and to say that, I'm not available, rather than getting external forces to force me to change my priorities. So boundaries have always been a big thing. And I've never worked in the evening because I don't have the energy for that. So I think that's a thing as well. It was often I would get up early in the morning to do something, get it out of the way, and then shut the shop, shut the door, and move on.
Yeah, no, that's lovely. I love the fact that you've obviously created the whole thing of having boundaries from the offset. And I think there's a lot of business people that can get trapped in that sort of cycle where you want to take everything and you want to try and help everybody and do everything, and then you just burn out. It doesn't actually benefit you in the long run. If
No, absolutely. And I've always been a believer that the right person should be doing the thing that they've got the skill set for. And you could argue that I probably outsource far too much because I've gone, oh, that's not for me, I'll give that to someone else. And that comes at a financial price, but also you need to be able to bring that resource in as you need it in order to scale and grow anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's interesting as well, though, going back to the whole mentoring and coaching, that you've obviously had. What advice do you have for those that are arming and ahhing about getting a mentor or a coach? Because obviously it comes at a price, and unfortunately, not everybody can afford at the time.
No. And I think I certainly had some free support through the sort of local authority or your local chambers. They often do things. And I've been a mentor for Virgin Startup in the past. So I know organisations like that have free mentoring packages. So I would say there are definitely opportunities to get it. And as a mentor myself, I would be always open to doing some sort of pro bono stuff just to support somebody and just be that person. So that's definitely available. But then there's also an understanding that you possibly have to budget for some support in order for you to scale and grow in the way that you want to. And I think being part of often networking communities, you can find and I hate that word, your tribe, but it's true is that you find your like-minded cheerleaders who will always be there to give you guidance and support. And I think people like doing that, don't they? They like to help, and it doesn't always have to be in a formal capacity. But if you can build up a trusted sort of team of people, of friends and local network around you, then you can always, if you're authentic and have questions, you can gain direction and support that way as well, as opposed to always having a formal mentoring or coaching structure with somebody.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting with building your tribe as you call it.
You know what I mean? It's a bit cringy, it's a bit overused now.
But it's finding that community, because when people network, sometimes they feel the need to carry on with something that's clearly not working. But it's always finding a group that you feel you can thrive in. And I think it's not about just taking as well. I think, you have to be able to, yes, you're getting the support, but also if you can support somebody rather than just have the one-sided, because sometimes you do see it in,
I know, totally. And I always say to my team, if you're on something like LinkedIn, don't just be broadcasting, it's the sharing. It's the same with networking. It's not ramming your cards at someone going, this is all about me. It's sort of asking a question, being naturally interested, and then that natural sort of two-way communication grows. And I think the power is in having one-to-ones and being proactive. And if you find someone you're really interested in, just say, oh, can we have a one-to-one? People love the opportunity to talk about what they do. And I think that's where the connection is formed, because you're having that quiet time together.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating with that. And picking on obviously the whole business thing, you set up your own business. Other people are not made to run businesses,
No,
but you know, for those people that want to start their own business, what bits of advice would you have, you know, especially for people that are mums as well? You know, what
yeah.
kind of things did you find helped you along your journey?
Yeah, good question. So research initially, so you might have a great business idea, but is there a demand for it? So do your research, test it out, talk to as many people as you can about what you're thinking of doing, because they'll be your biggest cheerleaders right from the beginning, but they'll also give you an honest opinion. I think in terms of even down to naming what you're doing, my advice often is don't just formulate it around your own name. Try and make it something a bit more neutral, maybe. Don't get fixated with, I've got to have a website, I've got to get everything in place before I launch, because things like LinkedIn are an immediate website for you, in the sense of, you know, you've got your profile on there. The same with Instagram for whatever business you're doing. If it's the right forum to be on, you know, utilize that. And I would say get out and about, get shouting about it, but obviously it needs to be a viable thing. So I think that the demand is really important from the beginning, checking out that people can do it. And as I said, not get fixated on spending your time doing all the background things. You really need to be out there engaging, sharing, telling people, because that's where the power is.
No, absolutely. And in terms of having the, you know, sort of the family side of things, how would you, what advice would you give them? Because
Yes, I would
our
involve
audience is
them.
different.
Yeah. No, no, absolutely. So I would involve your family. So I've got hilarious pictures of my girls coming to me, you know, with me to set up exhibition stands and things like that. And we've been laughing because I've been looking back at recently at them, and there they are, really little, with mindful orange scarves that we used to wear on, and doing my elevator pitch for me. And but the more I shared with them, the more they could understand what I was doing, therefore weren't resentful of me perhaps not being around all the time. So I think it's sharing that with the family, but also agreeing boundaries and sharing and communicating what time you'd be working. Therefore, if the door's shut, that means you can't come in, but also not getting sort of deep into work where you're missing out on things. So I think communication is a big thing.
Yeah, so it's all about the balance, isn't it? Just trying to balance it all.
Yeah, no, and treating it as a living, breathing thing that's going to evolve, but also it's the balance, isn't it? You know, the kids and the family have to come first, and this is something that won't go away. But it's picking your moments as to when, and being organised, I think, as well. So, like I said earlier, it's I would often do something before the girls woke up, or perhaps in the middle of the day, or I'd make sure I kept notes of things I wanted to do, and therefore prioritise what needed to happen. And I'm a real lover of podcasts and listening to things, so it's utilizing your time that way to, and I'll often do something in the car, and rather than just sitting listening to my music, I'll sort of pick those moments as an opportunity to listen to something. But it's making a commitment to things and
Yeah.
being consistent is vital, I think, in terms of growth.
No, that's brilliant advice on there. One of the things that, you know, obviously I came across as a mum myself was childcare. You know, how did you find that with,
Yeah.
you know, your children being young when you started and everything? Did you have a
So I started officially when my youngest daughter started school. So I remember being amazed how quickly the school day vanished when you're doing something else. So I utilised a little bit of after school care, being very mindful of budget, but I also I've got a lovely network of local friends. So I remember I was co-hosting a networking meeting, say every fortnight, and it meant my girls going to my neighbour at sort of 8 in the morning before school. And although they were a bit furious about it, it was the way of doing it. So it was building it and being relevant and asking favours, but obviously returning those favours as well. So it wasn't pushing the boundaries. But I think, budgets and childcare is extortionate now, isn't it? I sort of look back, as I said, we weren't doing daycare, we were doing that 20 years ago, and it's still expensive then, but I'm very aware of the growing costs of it now. So it's sort of utilising, and actually I had somebody that was training to be a nanny from college, and she needed a placement. So when the girls were very little, this was before the business sort of launched, I utilised that as well. So I think you can be a little bit imaginative, can't you, in finding the support you need, but it's always being mindful of paying it back in any way to friends and family and not taking advantage.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And nowadays it's quite a challenge as well because not everybody has their family around them. So you're kind of relying on that network
Yeah.
and having those friends and other mums as well. And just
Yeah, no, and I have my family, they live over an hour away, but I'm observing a number of my friends, quite like you say, if they had family nearby. So if you don't, it's how you build that support around you, definitely.
no, that's incredible advice for those mums. So it's not daunting, it can be done. It's just planning ahead and
it is, and not being worried that I'm not quite there yet. It's going at your own pace, and that's another bit I wanted to share. Was I've always said I've gone down my own lane on the motorway. I've observed what other people are doing, looking at competitors, but not feeling a pressure that I should be doing it this way. It's like you do it your way. You own your space. You drive things forward at your own rate, and there's no one telling you otherwise. And it's very easy to get distracted, isn't it? And have the imposter syndrome, the FOMO, think, I should be doing this, and that's you don't. You need to evolve at your own speed, and the right things will come your way.
No, they will. They will. It's just doing it, planning it, and getting organized. And I think, like you said earlier, it's the whole communication and involving your family as well. Because I suppose if you didn't really have that support from your husband, for instance, and your children didn't understand what you were doing, then it becomes really difficult to run everything and balance it out and try and make a business out of it. So that's really incredible that you've managed to do that. So obviously with the franchise, what are the goals and what are the hopes? Where is it going?
Yeah, So it's interesting, isn't it? Because franchising can have negative connotations, and I was never quite sure. But actually, once I really understood it and understood that to be an ethical franchise, it's just putting all the right things in place, and that your franchisees are the most critical part of your business planning. It all fell together, and I try now and not, franchise is simply the mechanism by which it makes it happen. So we have partners, and that's very much how I operate. So we've currently got, I think, 8 in the UK, and I'm just loving, empowering, and I'm saying remarkable women to be remarkable, to run something themselves, but not have to recreate the wheel. And that's the vital bit. They've got a proven business model. I give them the business in the box, the tools to do it. And it's so wonderful seeing my team flourishing with my support and mentoring, but also it's almost like, again, a bit like a mother, where you let your children free to develop something in their own way. And I've just had a message today. Fiona is our longest standing partner, and she's in Leeds. So I'm down south, she's up in Leeds. And she's at a business exhibition today, and it always makes me feel so joyful when I see photos of her, with her exhibition stand, and she's owning that space. But I've given her the tools with which to go and do it, but she's making it happen.
Yeah, no, it's just incredible, isn't it, that you're managing to empower other women as well and just supporting them and helping them and giving them.
I love it, Esther. I absolutely love it. And I love the pool of freelancers that we've got. And I often sort of describe them as like baby birds in a nest. They're waiting for food. And, we give wonderful opportunities to them, but they deliver amazing results for us. So it's a real win-win bit, because I think often trying to sell your services is daunting. And if you're not a natural salesperson, that could be a real stumbling block. So to work for an agency like ours where we match on personality as well as skill sets, that's vital for me. And it's always got to be a two-way thing. You know, our team need to feel comfortable working with the clients and vice versa. But by having the breadth and the number means we can match on both those parameters then.
Oh, that's fantastic, isn't it? So where can people find you if they're looking at you?
Find me anywhere, Esther. So I hang out a lot on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn's my sort of platform of choice. Obviously, we've got our website, and then I've got my personal Rebecca Newenham website as well for mentoring, and also I'm a franchise consultant for Ashton's franchising. So yeah, always open to any conversations. And as you rightly said, I describe myself as a super connector, so I love matching people. So always open for any conversation, and I feel it's a privilege to have survived 14 years as a business owner. So I really want to empower other people to have that same sense of fulfillment at different stages of their life.
No, thank you so much. Thank you for all the insights, all the nuggets that the audience I think can take on board. And I will have your links in obviously the with the podcast when it's released. So we'll have the links to connect with you and
Brilliant. Yeah, lovely.
anybody
Thank
wants
you.
to have a chat and know where to find you. But you've been absolutely brilliant, and thank you so much for sharing everything with me today.
My pleasure, Esther.